Hello everyone, my name is Heather and welcome to my channel Bookables. Today I am here to do a least favorite books of the year that I read last year. So I did a couple of these videos. At the beginning of the year I always do like my favorite books of the previous year, my least favorite books of the previous year. This year I also did one of my favorite thriller reads of the year and my least favorite, where I talked about 7 thrillers that I really enjoyed and 7 thrillers that I did not enjoy. So I'm doing the same but for romance, because I read a lot of romance. I forget how many I read in 2022. I want to say it was in the 40s, and I read 96 books. So it was a lot. So I've read a lot of romance. With that, I've read a lot of really good ones in the past year and a lot of really not so good ones. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to start out with my favorites because I don't ever like to bash on books, but you know, we're going to talk about 7 romances that I really enjoyed. A lot of these were featured in my favorite books of the year, so I'll try to go over those briefly. But there's some other ones that I want to talk about that I haven't really talked more about, like in other videos. Does that make sense? My brain. First up is The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigma Broca. I'll always butcher his name. But either way, this was their first foray into adult fiction. They predominantly write a lot of YA contemporary, which I've read a lot of their books and have enjoyed them, but they are the newest authors to make a jump over into the pond of romance, and I'm happy they did because I really enjoyed this book. This book is not for everyone though. I will say the reviews on Goodreads are kind of up and down. There's a lot of people that really enjoy it and there's a lot of people that don't enjoy it. I really liked it, obviously. So this follows 2 characters, Katrina and Nathan, and they're authors, and they decided, you know, and they're also best friends, they decided to write a book together. It was a huge success. It was great, but right after they wrote that book, they had a very big falling out and they haven't written together since. So they actually have a book left on their contract, so their publishers are like, look, we need a new book. You guys are not doing well solo-wise. You need to team up again and write another book. And so they reluctantly agree because they both kind of need the money and they both really want to boost their careers. So they go back to like this Florida house they rented a long time ago to kind of rewrite or kind of write a book together, and it's from multi-point of views and it's really good. The yearning in this book is next level because you can clearly tell something happened in the past that contribute to this, but I enjoyed it a ton. Like, I did read their newest book that just came out this year, and surprisingly, I did not enjoy it that much. This one I really enjoyed, so we'll have to see how Goodreads feels about the newest one. But I like this one. If you want characters that just, like, you want to punch because you like talk about it, but you also are enjoying it, I liked it. Plus, it really goes into the details of writing a book, of the nitty-gritty behind it. So I liked it a ton, would recommend it. 2 of these books were on my favorites of the year, so I'll go over those quickly. The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This is one that blew up last year with good reason. It's all about a character, Florence, who is also another author. She's a ghostwriter for a very famous romance author, and she does not believe in love anymore, so she's like, how am I going to write this author's newest book because I don't believe in love? And then she learns that her father dies, and they own like this funeral home in this very small southern town, so she has to go to travel back to it. And she can also see ghosts. There's a lot going on in this book, but somehow it works. Like, she falls in love with the ghost pretty much. The ghost of her new editor. And again, this book, yearning, amazing. I guess I love the yearning.
Burn, I pine, I perish.
But also it talks a lot about grief, a lot about kind of childhood trauma, and also it has a great love story. I loved it. I've read several of this author's YA books, but I say I much prefer her adult ones. I like this one a ton, and I'm very excited to see what she's going to do next in the adult romance world. The other book that was on my favorites list was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. We all know Emily Henry has taken the romance book world by storm. This is her latest one that came out last year. Again, I just noticed all 3 of these have to do with people that jobs are involved with books. Maybe that's the thing I'm liking, but either way, Nora is a literary agent and she's very cutthroat, and basically what happens is her sister makes her go to this small town to go on a vacation. She runs into an editor there that she doesn't have the best feelings for, but they decide to work on a book together, and goodness me, what the heck? Why am I just now putting these together? Basically, if you want a book about people that work with books, any 3 of these will do. Clearly, I enjoyed them all, so I liked them a ton. Next up, we have one that surprised me, and that is Running Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is the 3rd book in her Alaska series. If you know, The Simple Wild was one of her most popular ones. It's my favorite. In that book, we have characters Jonah and Calla are a main couple, but we had another character, I forget her name because I don't physically own it, that always had a crush on Jonah, and you always hated her because you're like, she is trying to steal our guy, and we don't want to do that, you know, and I never gave her a chance of the day. And then Kay Tucker decided to write her a book all about her. So this is what Running Wild is about. She is a veterinarian, and she's really good, and she works a lot with running dogs, specifically with the iron rod. There's a specific Alaska race that goes on, and she has to make sure that the dogs are being treated fair, they're not being pushed too hard, they're not injured. And there she meets a new guy that is a racer, and he is dealing with a lot. He's previously lost his wife and son, and things are just really kind of dicey for him. They have this really intense chemistry, but both of them know that it can't really go anywhere because of his past. But somehow you're still rooting for them, and I ended up really loving this character, even though I can't remember her name at all. I feel so horrible, but I really enjoyed it. As always, I love Kay Tucker's visit to Alaska. It makes me want to visit Alaska. Move? No. But visit? Yes. And I love the dog aspect in this book as well, with learning how Huskies particularly are raised to be like in the race, and how their bodies are built for that, and endurance, and how some kennels don't treat them fairly, and how she really rooted for like finding good kennels and being a good veterinarian. I love that aspect of it. So if you're hesitant because of said character, I feel so bad I can't remember her name, I would still check out this book. I really loved it. Definitely one of my favorite romances of the year. It wasn't like 100% at my favorites, which is why I haven't talked about it a ton, but I still really enjoyed it, and am glad it's part of the Alaska series. Moving on to a short story collection, and that is Loathe to Love You by Ali Hazelwood. So she, at the beginning of the year, decided to come out with 3 short stories, part of her STEMinist series. They each follow 3 best friends, and they each always, like all of her books, have really scientific, very smart jobs, and they're all short stories. They're great. They're recently bundled up into the Love to Loathe You. There's 3 of them. I really enjoy them all. I don't have a clear favorite. One is like a kind of hate to love romance, but you also get to go back in time and see how kind of that spans out. One's a second chance romance, and one's kind of like a friends to lovers romance. They're all equally amazing. I love that they were short stories, and the fact that they're binded as one now, it's amazing. You could just fly through them all. And I actually will dare say I like this a little bit more than her newest release that came out last year, Love on the Brain. I know, I liked it. Then we have Part of Your World by Abby Hamezen. This is a really cute one. This one follows characters named Daniel and Alexis. Alexis is a city girl. She's an ER doctor. She loves her job. She's in a very, very toxic relationship that she finally gets out of. She meets Daniel in a small town, and they end up hooking up one night, and feelings are there, and they decide to start doing this more regularly, but they know that it really can't ever come to anything because they're from different worlds. She's from a city life where she grew up very privileged, and she's like an ER doctor. Her families are doctors, and he is the mayor of this really small town and owns this bed and breakfast and things like that. So they couldn't be more different, but somehow they want to make it work. And it's just a beautiful love story about 2 people from totally different worlds and how they come together and make it amazing. I love this author. We all know this. I love this one. It almost made my favorites, but it wasn't quite there, but still easily one of my favorite romances of the year. And the last books I want to talk about, I'm talking about 2 because they're holiday ones, so I feel like I can wrap them together to make up my 7th spot. And that is Love Light Farms as well as Holiday Romance. So I read both of these obviously during Christmas, and what a treat they both were. Sometimes when I read holiday romances, I don't expect to love them, but sometimes they really knock me off my feet. Love Light Farms in particular. This is all about 2 characters that are best friends. The girl owns a Christmas tree farm. Amazing. And she's not doing well financially, so she gets herself entered in this like kind of influencer Instagram contest where she could win like 100 grand. Only problem is, in her submission, she said she bought this Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend. Only she doesn't have a boyfriend. Enter in her best friend. I forget his name because I don't ever write anything down apparently. And he's like, you know what, fine, I'll pretend to be your boyfriend to help you get this money. And of course, of course, all of those feelings that they've had for years, because everyone can literally see it but them, come to fruition. And it is it's like if you like Gilmore Girls, Christmas time, romance, friends to lovers, I love this book. And the other one was Holiday Romance. Again, this is kind of a friends to lovers book. This is about two characters that knew each other in college, and they both are from Ireland, and they both live in Chicago, and they both end up on the same flight back home for Christmas to Ireland. And you get to see, like, kind of, it goes back in time to see, like, Christmas flight 7 years ago, Christmas flight. And the big thing of now is they can't get home. He is really family involved. She is not. So she's made it her mission to get him back home. And again, like Love Light Farms, you can see the feelings from a mile away. You know it. They just don't acknowledge it. But either way, it is a great time. Both of these are great holiday romances that I would recommend you read a ton. Now we're going to talk about ones that I did not love. I don't think I own a single one of these books because it is what it is. First one I read all year that I was so excited for was Out of His League by Carolina Richardson. I saw this one on NetGalley. It was a baseball cover. I wanted to read it because I love baseball. Go Braves, even though they keep messing up. My favorite players keep leaving, like Freddie Freeman, Dennis Boston, what's up? But either way, I wanted to read it because I love baseball, and I was like, baseball romance? Heck yeah. No, I couldn't even tell you what this book is about. I think it was about a girl that met her favorite baseball player and they hit it off, and that is literally all I remember. And I think that's all that happened. I think that was my main qualm with this book, is nothing happened. There were no stakes. There was not a lot of chemistry. It was just boring. So that one was a disappointment for sure. I feel like I wanted to tell you more of why I didn't enjoy it, but I literally can't remember. Next up, Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead. So Ashley Winstead wrote my favorite thriller of the entire year last year, In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. She also decided to write a romance, and I did not enjoy it. And a lot of people enjoy this romance. The reason I did not enjoy it because it was political. I'm not a fan of that. That's just me personally. I feel like reading is my escape, and I don't want to read about political things because that's just me. So in this book, we have a character that she works for this, oh goodness me, I forget a lot of what these books are about, company that wants to have eco-sustainable cars, and she has to get some other people to kind of get in on this vote. It takes place in very conservative Texas, obviously, and she has to team up with her ex, who she broke up with on not very good terms, like she cheated on him kind of. And so it's kind of a second chance romance, hate to love thing, and I just mainly didn't enjoy it for the political aspect. I just did not enjoy it for that regard. I just think if any book's political, I've learned that I just should probably not even attempt it because it's just not for me. So that's my main gripe with it. Was it well written? Yes. Was the romance good? Yes, but there's a lot of just factors with the political and all that kind of stuff that I just personally didn't enjoy. As always with all my reviews, take them with a grain of salt. Next up, Lease on Love by Fallon Ballard. This is another one that I didn't necessarily didn't love, but I didn't really like it either. And this is about a character that, oh gosh, I forget. She's at some sort of high corporate job, and she realizes that it's really crushing her soul. So she's like, you know what? I'm gonna quit, and I'm gonna make it my dreams to open up a flower shop, because she gets to meet this guy on like a date, and he's like, hey, I have like a room you can live in my apartment. She's like, great, and she can run her flower shop out of there, and you're like, great. And I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. I was not feeling this book. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just not for me. A lot of reviews are really great on it. I just was not feeling it, and that's the only qualm I have with it. With a lot of these books, like, I can't pinpoint exactly what I did not enjoy, but I just remember not enjoying it, and this one particularly. This one, like, wasn't, I gave it a 3. It wasn't, like, horrible. It wasn't one of the worst books I've ever read, but it just wasn't up there for me for romance-wise. But, however, As Seen on TV by Mary the Shore, I did not enjoy it. I gave it a 2 out of 5. This is about a character that is a journalist that wants to like write an article about this really small town called Pleasant Hollow, like Stars Hollow, and she wants to go there and research it, and she learns that Pleasant Hollow is not very pleasant. And there she meets a guy that's working there because they're expanding Pleasant Hollow, and she thinks all the small town people will hate it, and they're like, no, it's great, like keep doing it. And so this book literally nothing happens. It is boring. The chemistry of the characters, blah, just nothing happens. I read it going into it with the promise of Gilmore Girls vibes, and not a Gilmore Girls vibe was found. Then we have Well Traveled by Jen DeLuca. This is her 4th book in her Renaissance Fair series. I really enjoy her first one in this, Well Met. The second one, I loathe. The third one, I forget what it's called. It was pretty decent. This one, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of fading out with my love for this series. It's just kind of meh. In this book, we follow a character that was in the previous book. I believe her name is Lulu. There, I got a character, and she gets involved with one of the touring bands of the Renaissance Fair, like the Kilts or something like that, and she gets involved with like the player of all players type of thing, and you can see where it's going from miles away. Again, not a really good chemistry with the characters. Again, kind of boring, nothing happens. I don't know. Maybe it was just me with my romance reading last year where I was overly critical on like things happening and things not to be boring. I don't know. But it just was like kind of meh. I didn't hate it, but the whole word I could describe this book for me was just meh. The Rewind, I forget who this was by. I read this one, saw it on NetGalley because the synopsis really intrigued me. It was about 2 characters that met in college in the 90s, and they're basically, they were involved together. Frankie and Ezra. I don't know how I remember that, but I do. They had a relationship in college. They were college sweethearts. They had a very big falling out, and now they're kind of reunited back in their college stomping grounds for like one of their friends' wedding, and I think it's on like New Year's Eve, like Y2K. And basically they wake up together the next morning in the same bed, have no recollection of how they got there, so they're trying to piece together. This book was horrible for so many reasons. Number one, the characters. The characters were straight up horrible. Like, I could care about neither of them. Like, they were both horrible to each other, horrible to other people. I was like, how were you guys even in love at some point? Because you clearly hate each other, and the way, and somehow through the end they reconcile, but I was like, like, I really wanted all the 90s vibes. I grew up in the 90s. I was born in 88. I was a 90s kid through and through. This book was horrible. The characters were horrible. My biggest gripe forever will be about that, the characters. Here you have my 7 favorite romance reads of 2022 and my 7 least favorite romance reads of 2022. Overall, 2022 was a great reading year for me. I had amazing book reads. I had amazing books that I read, but there's always going to be some that you just don't enjoy. And so I hope you got to see kind of a scope of what I liked and what I didn't like as far as the romance world is concerned. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye.